In this video tutorial, we will look at economic systems. We will look at the 3 economic questions and the 4 economic systems. Now this topic is a clash topic, and when I say a clash topic, we can use the same notes if you're doing principles of business and if you're doing economics. So stay tuned. Every society must answer 3 economic questions, okay? So we don't just run a country or run a population by guess. We always ask the 3 economic questions. What goods and services should be produced? How should these goods and services be produced? And who consumes these goods and services? Looking back to this first question here, what goods and services should be produced? We cannot just produce goods based on what we think will sell. We need to produce goods based on what we know people want or the needs are filled with these goods, right? We also produce goods and services to make a profit, to settle demands, to fill supply, okay? How should these goods and services be produced now? The goal of producing goods and services to any productive country or economic system is to not waste the resources. Now, if you remember, resources are usually scarce, right? Especially natural resources such as oil and gas and gold and any mineral that we can find, right? These are non-renewable resources, meaning we cannot use them back, okay? So we always produce goods and services based on how our resources go. You never produce goods and services to waste. And who consumes these goods and services is a big topic because this will determine who buys the goods and services from us, okay? So the point is, you don't want to produce something that is not in demand, or you don't want to supply something that is not in demand. You want to always meet a point where you make money, and this money will help govern society. There are 4 economic systems in any society, not any society, all society might be different, but there are 4 economic systems in which a society can fall under. We have the traditional, we have the command, we have the market economy, and we have the mix. And we're going to look at all in detail. So we're going to look at the advantages and disadvantages of each. Now we look at the first one, traditional economic system. And this has to do with ritual, habits, and customs. This is what our ancestors did long ago. And the main goal of this economic system is really to survive and settle one's own needs, right? So we built our own houses, we gathered our own food, and we live day to day and supply for ourselves. The basic economic questions are answered by doing things the way they have always been done. Okay? We have advantages of the traditional economy. Set forth certain economic rules for all members of the community, so that everybody in a traditional society will play a role in producing goods and services because every household now was for themselves. If I plant a crop of bananas, I'm just saying, let's say I plant 5 banana trees, those bananas is what I will use to feed my family. And any excess or surplus, then I might want to trade it. And we trade long ago, before the invention of money, we did bartering, right? Trading of goods and goods without the use of money. Because this economic system gave us a stable, predictable, and continuous life. It was stable in a sense that we self-suffice, we produce for ourselves. It was predictable because we know what we would do and we know the bananas will grow, and it's not unforeseeable then. And it continued life in a sense that I can feed my children and they could grow up to do the same thing and so forth, right? Self-sustain. And it revolves around family. As I mentioned children before. So what I do, my children will learn and eventually they will teach their children. Communities stay relatively close and small. So because of this, we have a few people living in a community, not a whole neighborhood, right? Not even more than 100 people. And the reason why they live close and small is because of self-sufficiency needs. If you have 500 people living in one area, then they're going to exhaust the resources, right? So if you have a few people at a time living in small pockets and communities, then they will be easier to self-sustain because it will have enough resources then to satisfy their basic needs. We have many disadvantages of traditional economy. And when we think about traditional, I know you're watching the pictures here and you're probably thinking, this is like Amerindians, this is like tribes. It's basically those subsistent people living still on earth, right? We have the Amazon tribes, we have those Central American tribes. Those people still live in a traditional manner. And way back when, in our days, in our great-great-grandparents' days, they were doing the same thing as well, right? Except they had to work in a plantation. They have disadvantages, and the first disadvantage is it discourages new ideas, new technology, and new ways of doing things. So, if I know how to plant bananas, my children will only know how to plant bananas, and so the generation will go. Okay, we don't encourage growth and expansion or anything. Again, it is subsistent. It only stays at one level. Stagnation and lack of progress. Again, it is subsistent and it stays at one level. Lower standard of living. Because they do not grow and accept changes and adapt to new conveniences in technology and so forth, they have a lower standard of living. Okay? They have few mechanisms in place to deal with disasters such as floods and droughts. So we live in subsistently. We live in arable land, meaning we could plant the land, but at the same time, if a flood or a major drought happen, what are we going to do? How will my banana survive under a flood condition or drought condition? The next economic system we talk about is the command or centrally planned economic system. And a proper example of this economic system is China. Basic economic questions of what, how, and for whom to produce are answered by a centrally planning economy. Okay? Advantages. Central authority is in command of the economy. Okay, meaning the government is in sole command of the economy. The government says what to produce, the government says when to produce it, the government also says who to sell it to. By this, no resources is really lost, right? We have even distribution of resources as well in a centrally planned economy. Capable of dramatic change in a short time because they are a centrally planned economy is under one authority. A change can happen at any time and it doesn't matter how big or how small it will happen because there are no stakeholders that attach to this economy, no private stakeholders that is. It's just simply the government and them alone. Little uncertainty over choices of career, where to work or losing a job. So because the government is in charge of everything, there's the advantage of uncertainty over choice of career because there would be no jobs available throughout. Where to work, you don't really have a choice. If you want to work in the economic sector, you have to work in these jobs. And as such, you have tenureship and losing your job will be far from being a reality. Many basic education, public health, and other public services are available at little or no cost. So seeing that the government has authority over what the private sector would have authority over in some countries, because in countries such as China, the government has full control over everything dealing with the economy. they are able to subsidize the living costs for education, public health, and other public services, right? At little or no cost. Because they are making money otherwise, so they don't need to tax anything where it comes to living. There are some disadvantages though. It does not meet wants and needs of consumers. So if you want to buy something special, chances are that you can't because it's not available for you in the market. Lacks effective incentive to get people to work. The work in China is now monotonous. They just have factory workers, people doing one thing over and over, and we don't really have much of a diverse economy to say, well, if I don't want to work in the factory industries, I can also be a lawyer or a doctor. There are doctors and lawyers in China, but even them too fall underneath the category of being employed by the government. It requires large bureaucracy which consumes resources. So because we're talking about the government, we talk about the only bureaucratic structure and red tape involved in terms of decision making, and they will be the one as well to have all say and rights over the resources of the country. New and different ideas discourage no room for individuality. So there is no room for one person to be outstanding in a business. Basically, the prices for goods are set, people buy it. If I go to store A, the cost for rice will be $10 a pack. If I go to store B, the cost for rice will also be $10 a pack. And if I go to store C, the price of rice will be $10 regardless of brand, because the government has their rulings, right? We have problems of a centrally planned economy. Centrally planned economies face problems of poor quality goods, shortages, and diminishing production. Because they only produce one thing and so forth, they tend to have a lack of resources where materials are concerned, and they eventually produce poor quality good because they will now be producing one thing over and over, and they find cheaper and easier ways to do so. And because they are only producing one thing, some goods will fall under shortage. We next move to the market economic system, or the free market, or capitalism. And we talk about, the closest example is United States of America. Buyers and sellers and dollars vote, right? So basically, the people, the private sector, the public sector, everybody have a say here. And I think Trinidad and Tobago is a classic example too of a market economic system. But again, we have the government in place. The basic economic questions are answered by having buyers and sellers to make economic decisions. Now, I would not class Trinidad underneath a market economic system because a free market is basically only theory and does not really exist. In any country, we do have the government interference, right? They always have a say in something, even in America. But America or the United States tend to be the only country that is closest to a free market or capitalist economy, right? We have advantages of this. Over time, it can just adjust to change. Individual freedom for everyone. So I could have my wants and needs delivered, and I can also produce. So, for example, if the people in a country wants lettuce, everybody is free to sell lettuce at different prices. Depends. Okay, if the higher the demand for something, the higher the price will go. Okay, until they have an oversaturation in supply, and then the price will drop. Little government interference. So the government is there, but they don't really interfere with the forces of demand and supply. It is decentralized and not concentrated in the hands of a few. Let me just talk about the centrally planned economy. It is not centralized to the government only. We have other people or other players in the economy having some form of say, such as private investors. There's a variety of goods and services now. So there's no restriction to what we could produce and when we could produce and how to produce it. we are now free to produce as we wish, creating a variety. We have a higher degree of consumer satisfaction, right? Because now we will have a variety of products, and chances are the customer will fall into one of those categories and be satisfied. There are disadvantages. Rewards only productive resources, does not provide people too young, too old, or too sick to work. Okay, so in this type of economy, only the healthy, able bodied, stable, and productive people will have the advantage to work. Workers and businesses face uncertainty as a result of competition and change or no guarantee for job. So let's say company A has the monopoly for holding the most shares in the market, right? We need to go into all these later on, but I'm just describing it quickly. And that company A has dominated the entire market by selling refrigerators, right? A certain brand of refrigerators. Company B now might want to compete with company A and sell a similar brand of refrigerators for the same function, okay? And then company C will come on now, selling the same thing at maybe a cheaper price. So they all compete with each other. And remember, when businesses compete with each other, the major thing to get affected here is price, right? The price will drop. The more of something we have in a market, the less money we will pay for it. Remember that time fidget spinner was a fad? Basically, every child wanted a fidget spinner, and it was so expensive. It was close to $200 for a fidget spinner, and eventually different companies started to produce and make these. It came from China, it came from America, it came from different places, right? And now you can get a fidget spinner for as low as $12 because it is saturated, it is outdated, and everybody had the chance to sell it. It does not produce enough public goods such as defense, universal education, or healthcare. Since the government has little interference, there's not much investment in social goods and public goods such as defense, education, or even health services. The next type of economic system we go on to is the mixed economic system, and I can safely say any Caribbean island will fall under this gap. So Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica, they're all under mixed economic system. And the basic economics question are answered by combining traditional, state-run, and private enterprises. So now in the mixed economic system, we have a mix of both the government and the private sector, and they both play a pivotal role in managing the resources. So the private sector do have say over the resources, but the government also has control over it. Mixed economic system, there are no real disadvantages. It is a combination of traditional market and command economies. It needs government intervention to create laws to protect property rights and enforcing contracts. Government provide for national defense, roads and highway system, conservation, environmental protection, and education. So the government do play a role in providing the public goods towards the economy. And the key is to balance control and freedom. So we have the control, we have the freedom to do as we want, but with some level of control. So I can open a business and sell what I want, but at the same time, I cannot exploit customers. I would have to face a heavy penalty, right? So all businesses feel the wrath of the law. All businesses pay tax to the government. The tax may need these businesses for private contracts and services and so forth. So they work hand in hand in the mixed economic system. The degree of government involvement in the economy varies among nations and can affect its society. This is the continuum of mixed economies. We have centrally planned economy and free market economy. We have centrally planned, such as Iran, North Korea, Cuba, China, Russia. We have on the extremist end, we have free market And under these, we have Hong Kong, Singapore, United States, Canada, and United Kingdom. In the middle section now, we will have the mix, which is basically a pooling now of centrally planned and free market, and countries such as South Africa, France, Botswana, Greece, and Peru, and not to mention the big thing, the Caribbean, because this is POB and economics for the Caribbean. The Caribbean falls under mixed economic systems. Right, so think about the Caribbean in the middle here as well. So remember, mixed economies are basically a mix of centrally planned, which is totally government control, and free market. So we do have the government and we do have the forces of demand and supply. So we have some essential questions and ideas, and this is something I want you to think about and we can discuss them. So basically, how do societies provide the necessary items for their people? And so society do so via an economic system. Who gets to decide now? Right? So we use economic system. Who gets to decide? It could be the forces of demand and supply, so demand and supply, or the government. Really depends on the economic system. Again, if you have a centrally planned economic system, we have the government. If we have a mix, we have the government and the forces of demand and supply. And if we have to think about no government interference, then we could talk about the free market economy. Which economic system fails to worry about its people wants? The centrally planned economy, because remember, the government is controlled and little needs is settled, right? So the centrally planned economy, see, and we label it CPE for short. How does each system assign roles to play in the economy? So, the centrally planned economy, the government will assign the roles. In the free market economy, the forces of demand and supply will determine the roles. And in a mixed economy, we have both forces coming into control to assign roles to play in the economy. And when the government should intervene in the economy, I think the government should intervene in any economy when resources are being wasted, when needs are not being met, when money is being lost. Which economic system do you think is beneficial to everyone and why? Personally, I will go with the mixed economic system because in a centrally planned economy, the government has total control, right? And people, in terms of needs and wants, are not really met because of that. And in a free market economy, things can get out of control with no laws and systems in place to prevent any exploitations and so forth. So if we have a mixed economic system, it has the government there with their laws and their taxes and so forth to help protect, but there's also the forces of demand and supply to help us choose what we want. So it makes it a little safer. Hence, the mixed economic system has little disadvantages. Okay, so thank you for watching this video tutorial on economic systems. Just to recap, we have the traditional system, we have a centrally planned economic system, we have the mixed economic system, and we have the market, the free market economy. So do pause the video and take the necessary notes and complete all reading based on the handout that is attached for this topic. Please answer all questions as necessary. So thank you for watching this video tutorial.